Hi, Debbie Samuels here, and I get to bring you Daily Hope. We're going to be taking a look at Psalm 65 today. Did you know that God finds pleasure when we spend time with Him, adoring Him or praising Him? And also, when we spend time doing that, it builds our faith and increases our intimacy with Him. Well, when I asked a group of women recently how they were doing in this area, most of them confessed that they really struggled with the words to be able to spend time with Him, adoring Him. Well, Psalm 65 gives us a beautiful pathway of ways that we can give praise and adoration to God. Verse 1 says, "Praise awaits you, O God in Zion. To you our vows will be performed." This verse is setting us up for praise. Now that word awaits or awaiting in this verse, the root meaning of that is to be silent. And the message reads like this: silence is praise to you, Zion dwelling God, and also obedience. You hear the prayer in it all. Well, we live in a culture today that really struggles with silence. I mean, we live in the day and age where there are earbuds in our ears, or there's music in the cars, or there's television or video games on at the home, and then we go to bed with sound machines. It's almost like we can't stand to be around the silence. Yet when we do that, we are diminishing the ways that we can spend in time of presence with God and hear from Him and really understand the awe of our God. Ruth Haley Barton, she's written a book called Invitation to Solitude and Silence. She says, "This may feel very strange to you, being in silence. Silence can be the most challenging, the most needed, and the least experienced spiritual disciplines among the evangelical Christians. It is much easier to talk about it and read about it than it is to be quiet." She also says we're starved for quiet. To hear the sound of sheer silence is the presence of God Himself. I remember taking all four of my kids to church once, and the goal was to get out of the house without anybody crying, but that morning was a complete failure. Not only were they crying, but I was crying, and we drove to church in a panic. I got them all into the children's ministry. Does this sound familiar to anybody out there? And I went into church, and I was not even near ready to worship. Yet the worship leader came out and said, "Before we sing, we're going to spend a few moments in silence." And I first felt my body begin to relax. And then I began to sense the presence of God. And the tears began to flow. And I began to breathe deeper. And then I experienced His love in such a way that I so needed that day. Now that moment was an unexpected moment of silence. But we also need to be able to schedule them so we can put away the technology, take a break away from family, and then go and have time of silence with our God. Now, the next part of this verse talks about our vows or our commitments, or the message says our obedience. As believers, we are to take seriously what we say we're going to do, and we need to do it. This is praise to God. The rest of the chapter, I want you to notice the yous or the yours that are listed in this chapter. This is talking about God. And when you read them, this is where you can fill your toolbox to be able to praise Him on a daily basis for what He has done. And so I'm going to read this to you just in a list of what I've read from the yous or the yours. You answer prayer, and to you all people will come. You forgave our transgressions. You answer us with awesome and righteous deeds. Form the mountains by your power. You are armed with strength. Stilled the roaring seas and the turmoil of the nations. The earth is filled with awe of your wonders. You call forth the songs of joy. You care for the land. You have ordained it. You drench its furrows. You soften it with showers and bless its crops. You crown the year with bounty. Your carts overflow with abundance. The grassland of the wilderness overflow. The hills are covered with gladness. The meadows are covered with flocks. The valleys mantled with grains. They shout for joy and sing. So I challenge you, take time this week. Spend some time in silence, being in presence of God. Learn to praise and adore him daily. And as the message says here, I'm just going to take a part of it and read it because it's so poetic. It says that God is the earth tamer, hill dresser, muzzler of the sea storm and wave crash. Of mobs and noisy riots far and wide, they'll come to a stop. They will stare in awe and in wonder. Dawn and dusk takes turns calling, come and worship. So come and worship, be in his presence, and adore the God that loves you. Have a blessed week.